Welcome to In-Silico Trials Real Impact, the In-Silico UK podcast that's revolutionizing the way we think about medical innovation. I'm Professor Alejandro Frangi from the University of Manchester, and I'll be your guide through this fascinating world of in-silico technologies. In each episode, we'll dive into cutting-edge research and groundbreaking news that are shaping the future of medical product development and regulation. From computational modeling to simulated clinical trials, we are exploring how digital approaches are transforming healthcare, making it safer, more efficient, more equitable, and incredibly precise. So, whether you're a researcher, regulator, a member of the public, or a patient representative, or simply curious about the future of medicine, tune in as we unravel the complex world of in-silico methods and their real-world impact. Get ready to discover how computer-simulated trials are leading to very real breakthroughs in patient care. In-Silico Trials Real Impact, where algorithms and data are saving lives. Let's begin.
All right, let's dive into this MHRA data strategy for 2024 to 2027. First dedicated data strategy, huh? Yeah, that's a pretty big statement. Seems like they're really signaling a shift in how the UK is going to use data for regulating all these medical products, medicines, devices, blood products, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
You've got the full strategy document right here.
Yep.
And a summary from gov.uk. So what jumps out at you right away?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that they're really setting the stage for a pretty dramatic reshaping of the healthcare landscape. This isn't just, a few tweaks here and there. They're talking about a fourth industrial revolution in healthcare powered by data.
Fourth industrial revolution. Wow. Okay, they're not holding back on the, strong language. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, imagine a world where new treatments are developed and approved way faster. You've got medications that are tailored to your specifics, genetics and lifestyle. And safety monitoring, that's so good, it catches problems before they even happen.
Okay, I see where they're going with this. Ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah.
But how do they actually plan to, make this happen? Where do they even start?
Right. Well, they've laid out 5 core themes in the strategy. So first up is supporting data-driven innovation and getting new treatments to people quicker. Basically, they want a more responsive regulatory system to keep pace with all the advancement.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about speed, though, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be about a framework that can handle, the rapid changes in things like genomics and personalized medicine.
Exactly. And that's where the second theme comes in, enabling effective regulatory decision-making. And a huge part of that is real-world evidence.
Yes, RWE. Saw that all over the place. So break it down for us. What is real-world evidence and why is it such a big deal for the MHRA?
Basically, RWE is evidence that comes from analyzing data gathered outside of those typical clinical trials. You see, clinical trials are super controlled environments, and they don't always reflect, how a drug or device is going to work for everyone out in the real world.
Right. So RWE is about understanding how treatments actually perform in the real world with all its messiness and complexity. I can see how that would be super valuable for regulators.
Absolutely. For the MHRA, RWE is a game changer. It allows them to make smarter decisions throughout a product's entire life cycle, from its early development stages all the way to post-market surveillance.
All right, so RWA is a cornerstone of this strategy. But how are they going to collect and analyze all that real-world data? They must have some pretty impressive resources.
Oh, they do. The UK has what they call a rich health data landscape. They can tap into things like electronic health records, genomic databases, you name it.
And then there's the Clinical Practice Research Data Link, or CPRD as they call it. That one sounds like a serious resource.
The CPRD is amazing. It's this research service with data from a network of general practitioners across the UK, anonymized patient data, of course. We're talking 65 million patients.
65 million. And they've got records going back how far?
Some records go back over 20 years.
Wow, 20 years of data. That's a goldmine for understanding long-term trends and safety outcomes.
Exactly. It's been crucial for monitoring medical product safety for over 35 years. And now, with this data strategy, it'll play an even bigger role in generating RWE to inform decisions.
This all sounds very exciting. But I got to ask, the strategy document does mention some challenges with the UK's health data landscape. Can you tell us a bit more about what they are? What kind of hurdles are they facing to unlock the potential of this data?
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses, right? One of the biggest issues is data fragmentation. Often you've got data siloed in different systems that don't talk to each other. Like, imagine important patient info stuck in separate databases that can't be linked.
Like, sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be, and it makes it really hard to get a complete picture of how treatments are working or to catch potential safety issues early on.
Okay, so data fragmentation is one. What else is on their list of concerns?
Well, data quality is a big one, too. Not all data is created equal. Some data sets might be incomplete, have errors, or they're just not standardized. That makes it tough to compare and analyze.
Right. So it's not just about gathering a ton of data. It's about making sure the data is actually usable.
Exactly. And then there are regional variations in how healthcare is practiced and how data is collected. What works in one part of the UK might not work the same way somewhere else.
So they can't just lump all the data together. They got to consider those regional differences.
Yeah. And of course, there's always the big concern about patient privacy and data security. They've got to find that sweet spot between making data accessible for research while also making sure sensitive patient information is totally protected.
That's a tough balance to strike, for sure. But it sounds like they're at least acknowledging these issues head on.
Yeah, they are. They're taking steps to tackle these challenges. For example, they're planning to introduce legislation around unique device identification.
Unique device identification. Sounds a bit technical. Could you break that down for us? What does that mean, and why is it so important?
Basically, it's like a super high-tech tracking system for medical devices. Every single device gets its own unique ID, like a digital fingerprint. That way, the MHRA can track it from the moment it's made to when it's used on a patient.
So it's about traceability. But how does that translate to better healthcare?
Imagine a scenario where a batch of devices turns out to be faulty.
Oh, okay.
With unique device identification, they could immediately pinpoint every single device from that batch, no matter where it is. They could issue a recall right away, prevent those devices from being used, and potentially save lives.
Wow, that's a powerful example.
Yeah.
It's not just about data for data's sake. It's about using it to protect patients and improve outcomes.
Absolutely. And this is just one example of how they're putting this data strategy into action. They're also investing in partnerships, building their data science capabilities, and looking into cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence.
Speaking of partnerships, they mentioned the Centers of Excellence in Regulatory Science and Innovation, or CERSIS. How do they fit into the big picture?
The sources are going to be essential for making this strategy work. They're these partnerships between the MHRA and universities across the UK.
Okay.
They create these hubs where academics and regulators can work together, to develop and test innovative ways to do regulatory science.
So they're pulling together the best minds in research and regulation to find new ways to use data to evaluate and monitor medical products? Sounds promising.
It is. The strategy specifically says the sources are key for generating real-world evidence and pushing forward the field of regulatory science.
So if not just the MHRA going it alone, they're building a network where they can tap into all sorts of expertise.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important part of the strategy: building up their data and digital tech capabilities. They know that to make this work, they've got to invest in the right people and tools to handle tons of data and use sophisticated analytical techniques. They're really embracing becoming like a fully data-driven organization. It's not just about having the data, but actually having the right people and the tools to understand it all.
Yeah, they're trying to, future-proof themselves.
Yeah.
Got to be able to keep up with all this health data.
Exactly. And that actually leads perfectly into the fourth theme, which is all about partnerships across the data ecosystem, right? They realize that they can't go solo on this. Got to work with other government agencies, research institutions, industry, even patient groups to build a system that actually works.
Right. Breaking down those silos we talked about. Makes sense. So what's the fifth and final theme?
This is where things get really interesting. Theme 5. Harnessing the power of AI and all those advanced analytics. They really see these technologies as game changers for how they regulate medical products.
AI in healthcare, that's the buzzword these days. But how does it play into this strategy? How will AI actually improve things?
So imagine AI algorithms that can go through mountains of data. They can spot safety signals that humans might miss, flag potential problems with a drug or device, before they even cause harm.
Like a digital detective, constantly on the lookout. Pretty impressive.
Exactly. And it's not just about safety. AI can help them make better decisions about how effective new treatments are. By analyzing that real-world data, they can understand how a treatment will work for different people.
So it's about getting closer to personalized medicine, right?
Yeah.
Tailoring treatments based on an individual's, needs and characteristics. That's pretty game-changing.
Absolutely. And the MHRA is super interested in using AI to speed up how new treatments are developed and approved, especially for rare diseases, where those traditional clinical trials are really tough to do.
Right. So it's about getting life-saving treatments to patients faster, especially those who've been kind of left behind by the old ways of doing things.
Exactly. But of course, with any powerful technology, you've got to think about the ethics. The strategy makes it very clear. AI has to be used responsibly and safely. Those algorithms got to be fair, unbiased, and transparent.
Transparency is huge.
Yeah.
People are naturally going to be a bit apprehensive about, AI making decisions about their health. How can the MHRA build trust and make sure people are comfortable with all this?
It all boils down to good communication and engagement. The MHRA has to be upfront about how they're using AI, explain the benefits, address concerns, and really involve patients in the process. It's about making sure AI empowers patients, not replaces human judgment or, erodes that trust.
Makes sense. It's about finding that right balance, tech innovation with good old-fashioned human oversight.
Exactly. And it's important to remember this is a journey, not like a destination. AI is always evolving, so the MHRA has to be flexible and willing to adapt as things change,
Right. It's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. This strategy lays the foundation for a healthcare system that's more data-driven, more innovative, and really puts the patient at the center. Exciting times.
I can hear the excitement in your voice. You're clearly passionate about all this. But let's talk a bit about how this affects computational modeling and simulation. That field really depends on data and advanced analytics, so I imagine this strategy has some big implications. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Computational modeling and simulation are going to be crucial for how we develop and evaluate new medical products. And this strategy creates a really great environment for those approaches to thrive.
Can you give us some examples of how those will actually be used, in practice?
Sure. Imagine using computer models to simulate how a new drug interacts with the body, predicting how well it works and what side effects it might have, even before it's tested in humans.
So like a virtual lab where you can test and refine new treatments.
Exactly. And it's not just for drugs. It can be used to design medical devices, personalized treatments based on a patient's, specific profile, even predict how infectious diseases will spread. The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
It's like computational modeling and simulation are going to be key tools for the MHRA as they become more data-driven. But what challenges will they face in actually implementing these approaches? It can't just be as easy as buying some fancy computers and hitting run, right?
You're right. It's definitely more complicated than that. One of the biggest hurdles is making sure those models are accurate and reliable. And those models are only as good as the data they're built on.
So data quality comes back to bite us again. We talked about it with AI, and it sounds like it's just as important for computational modeling and simulation.
Absolutely. If you feed a model bad data, the results are going to be unreliable. Another challenge is making sure those models are transparent, that we can understand them.
Right, especially when we're talking about decisions that could impact someone's health. We need to be able to understand how those models came to their conclusions.
Definitely. And that means good collaboration between the modelers, the regulators, and the clinicians. It's not just about building complex models, it's about making sure they're used ethically and responsibly.
Communication and collaboration seems like a recurring theme in this strategy. Breaking down silos, working together.
You got it. This isn't just about data, it's about people. Building a network where data can flow freely and securely, where everyone shares their expertise and they're all working towards the same goal, better healthcare for everyone.
And where do the sources fit into this whole collaborative ecosystem? We talked about them briefly before, but I'm curious about their specific role in all this.
Oh, the sources will be vital for pushing forward how we use computational modeling and simulation in regulatory science. They provide a unique platform for academics, regulators, and industry folks to come together, share what they know, and come up with new approaches.
So like innovation incubators for computational modeling in this regulatory space.
Exactly. They bridge the gap between the cutting edge research happening in universities and what regulators need in the real world.
Yeah.
Like you might have a CERSI focusing on new modeling techniques to predict, say, the safety of medical devices, or creating a standardized way to assess how reliable those models are.
It sounds like the CERSIs are really well suited to drive progress in this area with all their expertise and connections. This whole data strategy really does feel like a game changer for healthcare, and I'm eager to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch how the MHRA implements all of this and what kind of impact it has on how medical products are developed and regulated.
It does feel like a whole new era for healthcare, And it's not just the UK. Other countries are jumping on this data-driven train too. I think the UK has a shot at becoming a world leader in all this.
I think they've got a really good chance, yeah. Strong healthcare system, world-class research, and they've always been strong in data analysis and safety monitoring. This data strategy builds on all that and lays out a clear vision.
But as we've been talking about, there are some serious challenges too. Fragmentation, data quality, ethical concerns, all that stuff. How confident are you that they can actually overcome those and, achieve this ambition of being a global leader?
Well, it's hard to say for sure what the future holds, but I'm optimistic. The MHRA has shown that they're willing to embrace new ideas, work with others, and tackle challenges head on. And it's not just about the tech. They're also focused on building trust, getting patients involved, and using data ethically.
That's good to hear. It's not just about, crunching numbers. It's about using data to help people make healthcare better and create a system that's fairer and more accessible to everyone.
Exactly. And if the UK can actually make all this work, it could have a huge impact worldwide, inspiring other countries to follow suit and ultimately leading to a global shift towards more data-driven healthcare that puts the patient first.
Imagine a world where new treatments are developed faster, where medicines are tailored to you, and healthcare systems are just more efficient and responsive. That's definitely something worth working towards.
It is. And sure, there will be bumps in the road, but this MHRA strategy is a pretty good roadmap for navigating this, complex and ever-changing landscape.
Well, I think we've done a proper deep dive here. We've covered those 5 core themes of the strategy, explored real-world evidence, and even got into, AI and computational modeling. But like we said, this is just the beginning. The MHRA is on a journey that could completely change healthcare as we know it.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be a part of this field.
So, to everyone listening, I definitely recommend you check out the MHRA data strategy for 2024-2027 for yourselves. It's not just another boring policy document. It's a vision for a healthier future where data empowers us to make smarter decisions, create life-saving treatments, and build a healthcare system that really works for everyone.
A future where data is actually used to improve lives, not just collect information.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. But remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a future where healthcare is driven by data, compassion, and a real commitment to making people's lives better. Thanks for joining us.